What? I would have. Hey, let me go. Yeah, okay. Take it over there. Take it over there. We have to fix it. All right, Toronto, y'all Bashim Shabrak Thumb, all the brothers, y'all Shmal Thumb Bashim Shad, all the sisters. I'm Precinct Officer 531, under Commanding General YAHANNA. Tonight is Wednesday night law class. Okay, if you're tuned in with us, we're live on YouTube right now. Make sure you hit those sign-in links if you want to be a part of the school. Like, share, subscribe. That is how you sponsor our YouTube channel. Okay, today is Wednesday night law class. Shalom, Sister Nawal, Yahweh Shema, Thamba Shem Shai. If you have any questions, type your questions in the chat. If you guys have got any questions, go ahead and ask your questions throughout the class. So again, this is Wednesday night law class, and Lord allow, I will be able to teach this class with the same zeal and authority that the men above me have passed down. Okay, so this is Wednesday night law class. Tonight we're gonna get into some of the injustices being done to our people. Guys, you're gonna have to keep it down. Hello, you have to keep it down. Okay. We're gonna go into some of the injustices done to our people. Okay, like we've been bringing it out week in, week out. If you're tuned in with us, the most important channels you can subscribe to is America on Fire. All right, make sure you tune in to Commanding General YAHANNA. All right, he is live with all the generals in the I.S.U.P.K. Every Monday night. You can tune in, and that's where you're going to really learn. The spirit of what Blacks, Hispanics, and North Americans should be in. Okay, so we're going to start off this class going through an article. Okay, give me 1 minute to share my screen. Okay, and if you're Black, Hispanic, or Native American Indian, you're here in the city of Toronto. Okay, we are going to be meeting every Wednesday every Wednesday at the North York Central Library. Okay, we're here now. If you're Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indian, this is for you. If you are somebody of another nation, this is not for you. Okay, you are not welcome here. This is not a place for you to come. This is a place where Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians can come and learn the truth of the Bible, can gather together as the Most High commands us, as it says in Zephaniah 2:1. Can gather ourselves together and really build up our nation. Okay, so we're live. We're here at North York Central Library. Okay, you can find us on 5120 Young Street. Okay, make sure you come to the class if you want to join with us, learn with us, ask questions. Okay. All right, so let's start off in this article. And this is something we've talked about many times, and we're not going to stop talking about it because it's something that we need to address in our community. This is let me zoom in a little. Okay, this is an article from American Renaissance. All right, shalom to officers of body, YAHANNA. What's going on, other one? The water for tuning in. Okay, this is an article from the American Renaissance. It says, Indigenous women, and this article was written as of May 5th, 2022. Okay, and something sad about these numbers is if you start looking at the graphs on what's going on, this number is only going up. It's going up every year. This was written in May 12th, 2022. It says Indigenous women make up half the female population in Canada's federal prisons. Okay, Indigenous women here in Canada make up half the female population in Canada federal prisons. You know, some people, you might ask yourself, why are Native American Indians making up half the population, the prison population here in Canada? Right? Because of things like TV, you might come to the conclusion, or you might believe that Native Indian women are just the most dangerous criminals here on earth. That Indigenous women here in Canada are the biggest criminals here in Canada. And something that I find insane about this number, and a lot of people in Canada do, is that it's not just that Indigenous make up half the female population or half the prison population, but Indigenous women, they also only account for, they account for less than 7% of the total population in Canada. And I think that 7% includes both men and women. So maybe split that number in half. Maybe Indigenous women make up around 3.5 to 4% of the entire population of Canada. Yet they make up half of Canada's federal prisons. All right, let's keep reading. It says, Indigenous women now account for half of the female population in federal penitentiaries, a state of affairs Canada's prison ombudsman calls shocking and shameful. As of last week, federal prisons held 298 non-Indigenous women and 298 Indigenous women. This is the first time the ratio has reached 50-50, told the Globe and Mail. 1 out of every 20 women in Canada is Indigenous. But for some reason, they're making up 50% of the prison population. Don't play with it. You understand? That number right there is insane. And we've done so many classes on the amount of people are being carded, about all the cases and the paperwork that's going missing amongst police, in the police system here in Canada. Just looking at basically the terrorism from the Canadian government and the police force towards Blacks, Natives, and Indigenous people, these numbers are insane. So, okay, 1 second. Yeah, come on, Concer. Right, these numbers are insane. And I don't know if that's probably a hard thing to fathom, how many people are actually in the prisons when we make up such a small population here in Canada. Right, let's keep reading. It says, Ottawa has made countless pledges over the years to address the issue of Indigenous overrepresentation in prison. In its 2001 speech from the throne, the Cretan government vowed to eliminate the disparity within a generation. Indigenous imprisonment soared under the Harper government, which introduced a series of mandatory minimum sentences that criminologists have said had a disproportionate impact on Indigenous people. In 2021, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau mandate letters directed the Ministers of Justice and Public Safety to address the overrepresentation issue. But the trend has defied all government efforts to reverse it. Dr. Zinger said, it's just shocking and shameful for a country that has so many resources. All right, let's close that article there. And there's a lot more I could get into this article, but what I want to kind of segue into is what this Dr. Zinger says, which it's just shocking and shameful for a country that has so many resources. Right? I was looking at some of the numbers, and the Canadian government is giving the police, all the police force here in Canada, over $15 billion a year in resources. $15 billion a year to help the police force here in Canada do their jobs and do it effectively, right? You look at the $8 billion that they've given to the war in Ukraine, right? That's not even on their own soil. When we have housing crisis, we're having a housing crisis right now, rent crisis, right? The cost of food is insane right now. And we're giving all these resources towards policing and the war in Ukraine. It's insanity, over $15 billion a year. And the reason I want to talk about that $15 per year is, General Mahyman, if you go back in our classes, General Mahyman did such an excellent class showing the rate at which Blacks and Indigenous here in Canada are being pulled over. And what you need to understand is all that money is going towards policing you. Black man, Hispanic man, Native American man. The police, the amount that the police force are pulling over Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the amount of money they put towards policing our neighborhoods, the amount of money they put in towards policing the reserves, a lot of these funds are just going towards incarcerating you, keeping you in prison. And Lord allow, I might start getting into a series about all the injustices going on in this incarceration system. For example, there's one brother who's in the Kingston jail. He's in the Kingston jail right now. He's been in what they call solitary confinement for over 2,100 days. which the Canadian government, I think it was in 2019, outlawed it as a basic human right. They said that being in solitary confinement goes against a person's basic human rights. And so they shut that down as it was some kind of archaic practice, but yet they still have our people being put in solitary confinement to this day. And a lot of lawyers can't understand why. In I.S.U.P.K, we understand absolutely why. Right? We bring out verses all the time like they hunt our steps. Matter of fact, let's get into that verse, because not only do they hunt our steps, but they set up traps for us. It's Lamentations. Lamentations chapter 4. We'll start at verse 17. All right, this is the book of Lamentations chapter 4. Verse 17, it says, "As for us, our eyes is yet failed for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us." You got to understand that these native Indians that are living on these reserves, they're looking for help. And that's why it says they have yet failed for our vain help. It's crazy that the indigenous community in Canada in 2023 is still begging the Canadian government to give a solution to their problems. They're begging the Canadian government to help the crisis where what was once called the 60s scoop is now called the millennial scoop. We have 50% of the foster care systems being filled up by indigenous peoples here in Canada. Right? That's a crime and that's a damn shame. And the indigenous people are still looking to the government to solve that problem in 2023. We have all these, there's over 51 boiled water alerts to this day. Right? There's over 51 issues on these reserves of different reserves calling for help for clean drinking water. I think it's 1 out of every 4 house on these native reservations has more than one major, what do they call it? One major, basically one major housing repair that has to get done. So for example, they might have a busted pipe, some busted pipe with water running through it in their house, and they need some maintenance on their house, but because they can't afford it, they just got to live with that issue. That's 1 out of every 4 native house here in Canada. And they're still out there, they're protesting right now. You have natives protesting in BC about that, over that land, what's it called? Salaki, Officer Zabadia, maybe you can get me right on that. That landfill, something about that landfill, right? We just went over that on the weekend, right? These indigenous people are out there protesting today, begging Canada to do something different because of their living conditions, right? That's why it's called vain help. It says, "In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us." And all these time, these natives are sitting there protesting to the Canadian government. You can see it today in 2023. This nation hasn't saved us. Justin Trudeau wrote something in 2017 to address the clean drinking water, to address the issues of mass incarceration on indigenous peoples. But yet in 2023, that rate of indigenous women being incarcerated has gone up. It's going higher. Why? Because Canada is a nation that can't save us. Verse 18, it says, "They hunt our steps." Right? And that's exactly what they do. They hunt our steps in these streets. they hunt our steps in these streets. Actually, matter of fact, I wasn't gonna get into that, but I'm gonna show you a quick video on something that just happened to a sister, and where is this? I forget where this was. This was somewhere out west. Salakia, YouTube, we do not own the rights to this video. Do not shut us down. We're just sharing this for teaching purposes. Right? This is something that just happened to an indigenous sister. I think it was last week.
In Sioux Lookout. The incident, caught on camera, happened on July 10th in Sioux Lookout, Ontario. The OPP acknowledged the video in a press release on Tuesday and said the incident, caught on camera, happened on July 10th.
This is in Ontario. This is in northern Ontario. This just happened last week.
In Sioux Lookout, Ontario. The OPP acknowledged the video in a press release on Tuesday.
And Slack, anytime you guys have any questions, go ahead.
Tuesday, and said the officer used, quote, the most appropriate use of force option to address the...
Now, the investigation, what did she just say? The Canadian government says that this officer used the appropriate and necessary amount of force needed on this indigenous sister. This is the nation that you cry to. This is the nation that you beg for help.
The immediate situation, exposing the subject, public... and officer to the lowest level of risk. The 23-year-old First Nations woman has been charged with assault with intent to resist arrest. AP10 News has spoken with her family.
Salakia, YouTube, the internet here in the library is not the greatest. But if I could pause here, maybe you can see it. This police officer is basically beating the woman in the face. This is in northern Ontario. Okay, maybe what I'll do is I'll share this link in the chat. If you want to take a look at it for yourself, you can. This police officer is beating her half to death. This police officer goes to the gym every day and trains, right? Like what in the States, I know if you're a boxer in the States, you train to fight, they consider your weapons or they consider your hands a weapon because they understand that a professional fighter, when they hit somebody, when they hit a civilian, it's like you're assaulting somebody with a weapon, right? You're a boxer in the States, you punch somebody, you've been training to fight, that's an assault with weapon. Right? Anybody who's been charged with that, they understand the difference, right? And how the authorities deal with you, with how the authorities deal with you when it's assault with weapon or it's just a regular fight, quote unquote, regular fight. Well, this police officer, they are a trained fighter. They're a trained fighter. This is what they do for a living. And they are punching this sister over and over in the face. They are punching the sister over and over in the face. And at the end, let's see if I can play this one more time. Maybe the library has caught up with us. And at the end, after beating this sister half to death, this police officer in Northern Ontario pulls out a tase gun and tases her. I'll make sure to share this link in the chat.
Of risk. The 23-year-old First Nation woman has been charged with assault with intent to resist arrest. APTN News has spoken with her family, and you can read much more about this story on our website at aptnnews.ca.
Damn. All right, so Salaki, I'm not sure if you guys were able to see that video clear, but after the police officer punches her multiple times in the face, you see him kick the girl over, and she falls on her back. Punches her multiple times, kicks her, she falls on her back, probably smashes her head off the concrete. Then he pulls out a taser gun and tases her. This is the people that you're asking for help. That's why the Bible calls it vain help. There's not a nation that will save you. Verse 18, it says, they hunt our steps. You understand? That police officer in Northern Ontario is literally hunting Indigenous people's steps. That's what we just saw. It says that we cannot go in our streets. Go ahead. It says that we cannot go in our streets. You understand? If you're a Black, Hispanic, or Native American man or woman, you got kids, you wouldn't want your kids to go out in the streets. That's why you're always telling your kids, come home before the lights or before those street lights go out. You don't want your kids out late at night because Lord knows what's going to happen to your babies here in Canada. Right? Lord knows what's going to happen to your babies here in Canada. You got police officers out here doing the most on our people. It's not safe for our babies in the streets. It says our end is near. Our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. You understand? This is what's going on here in Canada. You understand? Let's go to Slovakia. Yeah, let's leave that for now. Give me 1 second. All right, let's keep going. Right, for time's sake, we're gonna keep moving. All right, we got a small time restriction here in this library. We'll bring out one more quick story, and then we'll move on. We'll get into some verses. All right, Salaki, let's just keep going on. Because we got to really understand what's going on here in Canada. Like what happened to that sister in Northern Ontario was disgusting. And you already heard them say at the beginning of that video, they believe the police officer used the correct use of force. Right? Use the correct use of force. Masha, sit forward. right? They said that police officer used the correct use of force. Just such a sad thing on how they treat our people here in Canada. Right? And that's just not here in Canada. That's all across the world. Don't matter if you're Black, Hispanic, Native American in the UK and Jamaica, right? The different Caribbean islands in America, right? Lord knows all the horror stories we see going on in the States, right? Because of all the media outlets they have out there constantly shedding a light on the things going on, right? And you see people, you see different lawyers here in Canada saying they can't understand the injustices going on here in Canada. They can't understand why all these women are being incarcerated. Yet all the information is there, right? You go on that Canadian government, it tells you why they're being incarcerated. It always tells you this is a result of slavery. This is a result of the genocide done to their community. This is a result of trauma, of PTSD. Right? This is the result of kids growing up in fatherless households, right? This is a result of the 60s scoop, the residential schools. Yet this stuff continues to go on. They're giving $15 billion towards policing every year. Why don't you give some money to the people in the reserves, right? Half these people being incarcerated are being locked up for petty crimes. Right? Meaning there's an indigenous woman who's hungry. There's an indigenous woman who wants to feed her kids, who wants to feed her family. Shoot, you go to the grocery store today, it's probably $15 for a bag of apples. Indigenous people on the reserves. Canada says that they're the number one minority group that is overpopulated in the households. Meaning these indigenous families, they probably got 3-4 families living in one house. And so because of poverty, people commit crimes. Not because of the race that you are, not because of your ethnicity. Guys, are you done? You understand? It's not because of the ethnicity that you are or the race that you are. Mal, sit down. Why didn't you go pee? You understand? It's not because of the ethnicity that you are. It's because of your living conditions that you commit crimes. So you wonder why, after stealing somebody's house, their land, their resources, now they don't have enough money to feed themselves, to clothe themselves, to house themselves. You spend $15 billion towards a police force, towards policing our communities, and then you wonder why we're being incarcerated. Right? Get me right with that, Officer Zabadi. Isn't that something they used to do in the South? They would put those trucks full of shoes, full of clothes. They'd bring it right to the hood, right to the ghetto, drop the truck off, and then people would see this truck that just looked abandoned. And then our people, you had blacks in the South, right? Because they didn't understand these laws. They didn't understand that they shouldn't steal, they shouldn't take something that's not theirs, regardless of their circumstance. They went out there taking some clothes, some shoes, and then they were being thrown in jail by the thousands. You understand? This is what they're doing to us today. You understand? That's why it says in the Bible, just paraphrasing, they set out traps for us. You understand? They set out traps so that they can catch us. Right? Salaki, 1 second. All right, Salaki. Shema. All right, where are we at? All right, let's get into this last article, then we'll go through some scriptures. All right. This is an article. This is an article from cbc.ca. Okay, it says the Millennium Scoop. It says indigenous youth say care system repeats horror of the past. Okay, indigenous youth say care system repeats horror of the past. It reads, is the care system broken or working exactly as designed to wipe out indigeneity, they call it, right? Meaning the culture of the indigenous. It says indigenous children accounted for more than half of foster children under 14 in Canada in 2016. That's despite the fact that First Nations, Métis, and Inuit youth make up just 8% of that age group nationality, right? Again, these statistics are insane. They're saying that our people, our children, are making up only 8%, all right? Only 8% of the nation's, of that age group population. 8% of the population, yet 50% of our babies are being put in the foster care system. You understand? And you're wondering why all our kids, all our babies are being put in these foster care systems. You have CAS going to their houses, their homes, saying, your house isn't fit to raise a child. You understand? Like I said, they have laws on how many people can live inside of a dwelling space. Canada used to have laws. I think it was only, you had to have one room for every child. One room per child in Canada used to be a law. And so you got natives piling up in these houses. You have CES being called on these families, and all these children, all of our babies are going into the foster care system. And it's crazy because you would believe that, like things like that, you would believe that only natives are piling up in one room. Have you ever seen Indians? You ever seen how Indians live? Bangladesh, I think Bangladesh has the highest density of population in the smallest amount of landmass in the entire earth. You understand? They'll have 20 families in one house. They'll come over to Canada, they'll put a ton of families into one house. Shema. You don't have to wait. You understand? They'll have 20 families come over to one house, work together. You understand? Have the Canadian government give out all the different welfare and EI checks to them. You understand? Do that for a couple of years, and then they move on and continue to build up their wealth for their people, build up their wealth for their families. But our kids got put inside the foster care system. You understand? Our kids got put in that foster care system. They're being raised in that foster care system, and then they're coming out being in prison for petty crimes. All right, let's keep reading in the article. It says, the children who go through the system are often cut off from their families and cultures. Some call it the Millennium Scoop, an epilogue to the systemical race removal of children in the 60s scoop. Rather than a side effect of a broken system, one survivor believes the inherent structure is the problem. The foster care system is working the way it's designed. It is a machine to destroy indigeneity, said Jay Simpson, a 23-year-old university student. Stop it. It says, only restructuring will help, Simpson said. There was very little cultural support in regards to my identity. A lot of my experiences were quite queer-phobic and anti-Indigenous, so I couldn't really explore who I was as a person. And if there was any exploration of that, it was often looked down upon and shamed. It says Dylan Cohen was taken into care in his early teens, along with his twin sister. Their first foster home was 45 minutes away from their community. He said that while placement with well-meaning families is great on paper, it leaves children very far away from what they know and what they will need to survive once they exit care. They were eventually separated and he moved from home to home. My social workers would always speak about the high caseloads and the limited number of foster homes. You understand? And I'll drop that article there, right, just for time's sake. But if you even start reading some of the testimonies, the stories of these kids, right, being raised in foster care systems, a lot of these things these Indigenous children are saying is the majority of them are being put into foster homes with Christian parents, right? You see Canada, you see Christianity all over the place. And, oh, we're a good Christian home. We're a good place to raise these kids. We're a good place to raise these children in these foster care systems. Yeah, they're raising these kids and they're being put into prison, right? Right from a young age, right from the age of 12. From 12 on, they're being put inside these incarceration. They're being put in prison, these juvenile detention centers, so on and so forth. You understand? Because, again, they're being raised in such a destructive way. Being ripped from their families' homes, put into these foster homes where they're learning a different culture. A lot of these natives, they don't even speak English. Understand? A lot of them, they're still speaking what they call their quote-unquote native tongue, right? There's a story of a brother, he was incarcerated from the age of 12. He didn't know how to speak English. He had to teach himself how to speak English while he was in jail. And so you're taking these kids and you're putting them with another nation of people, teaching them Christianity, stripping them of their identity, and then you're over-policing their communities. Like, the destruction that's been done on our people is insane. And it's about time we wake up and start addressing these issues. All right, so we're going to drop that story, and Lord allow, I'll get into a lot more of the statistics, a lot more of the stories, a lot more things going on here in Canada, right? We're just touching base on a few things, okay? And the reason that's important is the reason these stories are so important and the reason this law class is so important is because this was the only solution to the problems that we're having in our community. Salaki, man. All right, Salaki, bear with me. Right, this is the reason that this law class is so important, because it's going to fix the problems of our nation. Understand? All this marching and protesting, right? Going out to Yonge and Dundas and trying to block some cars from driving by to let people know your plight. Those things are not going to help you. They never have. You understand? It's about time we actually pick up this Bible and follow it. This Bible is our history. This Bible is our records. This Bible has a solution to getting out of these conditions. It's about time we follow it. All right. We're going to jump to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4 and verse 1. It says, now therefore hearken, right? Now therefore listen. Hearken means to listen, to hear, all right? It says, O Israel. Who is Israel? Israel is the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. If you are a Black, Hispanic, or Native American Indian, you are part of one of those 12 tribes. You understand? The scriptures are saying, listen, Israel. Listen, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, unto the statutes and unto the judgments, which I teach you. You understand? These statutes and these judgments, these are the laws, statutes, and commandments that we find in the Bible. You understand? The Bible says, thou shalt not steal. You understand? When it says thou shalt not steal, it is giving you a command. The Most High is giving you an order to do something. Don't steal. You understand? Don't steal. It's not something that you should do. It's not something that you should do. You have to listen to these statutes, listen to these judgments. Understand? Not only are there statutes, there's also judgments. There's a punishment for stealing. There's a punishment for committing petty crime. You understand? This is why when you look at these statistics, our people are being locked up the most. The Most High is telling you there is something that you need to do. You need to change. These laws, statutes, and commandments were given to you. There's a punishment for stealing. You understand? There's a punishment for these petty crimes. And when I say petty crimes, I am only speaking to the crimes that pertain to these laws, statutes, and commandments we find in the Bible. The Most High says, don't steal. Don't steal. You understand? And I can understand being hungry. I can understand not having money. You understand? You just want to feed yourself for the day. You just want something to eat. All right, Salaki, confession is good for the soul. I remember being a youth. I remember going to high school. I was the first person to school every day. You understand? I remember there was one year I was the first person to school every day so that I could be the first one in that cafeteria so I could get myself one of those egg sandwiches. You understand? Go ahead. Go. You have to hold it. You're going to have to hold it. You understand? I was the first person in that cafeteria so that I could get myself some food to eat. You understand? I had my own little hustle to where I could steal one of those egg sandwiches. It's just because I wanted some breakfast for the morning. You understand? It's not because I was out trying to harm people. You understand? I wasn't out there trying to harm people. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I just saw that my school looked rich. It had a ton of resources. You understand? It didn't look like taking one egg sandwich would harm anybody, and so that's what I did. Take a seat. Go. You understand? That's what I did. And so I can understand these small petty crimes. I can understand taking something just to get a little food to eat. You understand? But the Most High says, thou shalt not steal. And there's a judgment for that. There's a punishment for that. You have to wait. You understand? There's a punishment for that. There's a judgment for that. You understand? When you read the book of Maccabees, there was righteous brothers who said, I would rather die than eat pork. You understand? And as a young man, I should have, if somebody had taught me that and I had understood that, you know what I mean? Maybe I would have escaped a lot of the drama that I had to go through as a youth. You understand? If somebody taught me to be a little stronger, you understand? Just to be a little stronger. You understand? Not to sacrifice my integrity. You know what I mean? Just to get a small bite to eat. You understand? Then maybe I would have been rewarded for that. And even if not being rewarded in this life, maybe being rewarded in the next. You understand? Reincarnation is in the Bible. You understand? And when Christ comes back and he builds his kingdom, we're going to be a part of that. You understand? Especially the ones who obey him till death. Those righteous brothers in the Maccabees said, I'd rather die than eat pork. You understand? They weren't starving. They weren't going hungry. They just understood that eating pork went against their father. Eating pork went against the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. And they weren't willing to sacrifice their integrity for anybody, for anything. And that's the kind of spirit that we need amongst Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Brother said, I'd rather die than eat pork. You understand? We should have that spirit of, I'd rather die than steal. I'd rather go hungry than steal. I'd rather go hungry than steal. You understand? I'd rather suffer, you understand, and fight with my wife for the rest of my life than to throw her away, you understand, and dishonor my father. To throw her away and break the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. You understand? The Most High says, don't do this, don't do that. And we got to have the spirit of keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments no matter what. Understanding that our integrity as a people is the most important thing that we have. Right? It says, which I teach you for to do them. You understand? The Most High didn't teach us these laws, statutes, and commandments to break them, like this Christian church would have you believe. I was speaking to this one Christian. I remember asking them, so you're saying the laws are done away with? He said, yeah, the laws are done away with. That stuff in the Old Testament we don't have to do anymore. Now it's okay for us to eat pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster. And I said, okay. I said, so do you have kids? He said, yeah. I said, would you teach your kids to lie? He said, no, I wouldn't teach my kids to lie. I said, so then you would teach your kids to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. And he looked at me sideways and said, no, I would never do that. You understand? Because to Christians, keeping these laws is a strange thing. Christian can't understand why it's so important to teach morals and integrity to a nation of people. Christians can't understand of keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments no matter what. Right? This is why the IUIC is no different than the Christian church. IUIC will tell you it's okay to divorce your wife if she doesn't believe or she doesn't join us in the IUIC. She doesn't have the same beliefs in you. Where is that in the Bible? Christ said, unless it be for fornication, you are with that woman for life. Unless it be for some kind of sexual immorality, you are with that woman for life. Christian church will tell you if you're not happy with that woman, find a new one. The IUIC is no different. The IUIC is just another Christian organization. You understand? In the I.S.U.P.K, you marry a sister, you are theirs for life. You are with that woman for life. You women, you are with that man for life, no matter what. Because our integrity is everything. You understand? It says, that ye may live. This is why you keep the law, statutes, and commandments, so that you can live, so that you can have a good life. So that you don't have to worry about your babies being hunted down in the streets. You don't have to worry about another man coming after you because you slept with another man's wife. You understand? That's how you live. You don't have to worry about being incarcerated for some of these petty crimes because you're keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments. You're living a life of morality, of integrity. Right? It says, and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers giveth you. Understand? We're not going to get that land until we change the way we act. Understand? We're not going to have a possession for our loved ones. We're not going to have a a possession for our kids. We're not going to have something to give to the people we love if we don't change who we are as a people. Yeah. Verse 2 says, "Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you." You understand? The IUIC adds to the word that the Most High commands us. You understand? He said, you're with that woman for life no matter what. IUIC says you can throw her away if she doesn't join this school. You can throw her away if she doesn't join the IUIC. You understand? The IUIC hates God. Most I told you, ye shall not add unto the word which I command you. Whatever it is that I tell you to do, that is what you need to do. There's no law in the Bible that says a man can't have more than one wife. But the IUIC would have you believe that that's not something that's good for you. Right? Christ likened the kingdom of heaven to a man having more than one woman. Meaning it was something good, something beautiful. You have people out here teaching you that it's not right for a man to have more than one wife. It says, neither shall you diminish aught from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. All right, these are orders. You understand? Don't look at the Most High like he's some punk. Look at the Most High like he's your father. You ever picture if to those of us who what's the word I'm looking for? Who were I don't want to say blessed enough. That sounds too Christian. Salaki. To those of us who had the opportunity to have a father in the household, you can understand when that man told you, put the garbage out, do your homework, come in at this time. And if you didn't, and you didn't listen, your father punished you for that. You understand? Your father punished you for that. And that's how we got to look at the Most High. Don't look at the Most High like he's some punk. I don't let my kids, when I tell my kids to do something, that's it. There is no negotiating. There is no, I'll do it at this time. You understand? If I tell you to do your homework, you're doing your homework. That's it. If I tell you to go to bed, you're going to bed. That's it. And if you don't listen, you have punishments for that. All right. Verse 3 says, let's jump to verse 3 says, your eyes have seen what the Lord did, not because of Baal-Peor, for all the men that followed Baal-Peor, the Lord thy God hath destroyed them from among you. Right? Understand that you go ahead and start worshiping all these different gods, right? You start doing things that the Most High doesn't want you to be doing, he will destroy you. You join Islam, you join that Christian church, the Most High will destroy you. You worship and pray to that white Jesus, the Most High will destroy you. And you can see that in our people today. Verse 4 says, but ye that did cleave unto the Lord your God are alive, every one of you this day. Understand? Because the Most High is merciful. Right? A lot of brothers in the I.S.U.P.K, you understand this. You understand that you were living a life where you should have been dead. You should have died. A lot of brothers can understand that, they might be looking back on their life saying, man, I don't know how I made it out of that situation. Right? Slacky, Officer Zabadi, shout out to Officer Zabadi for getting me that one shirt. It says, I survived the streets. I survived the Christian church. Understand? Because for a lot of those brothers, right, that unfortunately had to grow up in those living conditions, right? You can look back on your life saying, how did I survive that? I can look back on my life saying some of those life decisions I made, I don't know how I made it through that. But we're here today. Why? Because the Most High showed mercy. Right? The Most High is also merciful. You understand? And maybe there's something I can do with my life, you know what I mean? Or maybe there's something I can give back to my community that one day the Most High might look at the things I've done and say, you know, maybe I'll show you mercy. You know what I mean? Maybe if you keep showing love to the North American Indians, maybe if you keep showing to Blacks and Hispanics living in the ghettos, barrios, and reservations, maybe I will show mercy on you. All right? Yeah, okay. Take him to the washroom. Yeah, no, don't play around. Go and then come back. All right. Verse 5 says, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Right? You should keep these laws, statutes, and commandments no matter where you go. It's crazy to think that people are telling you that we can't keep the Passover. We can't worship our God and keep these laws, statutes, and commandments because we're not in the land. Right? When the first Passover that was ever held was in Egypt. You understand? We held a Passover in Egypt. We had a Passover in the desert, in the wilderness, right? When we didn't have a land. We got to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments no matter where we go, right? No matter where we are. Okay, verse 6 says, keep therefore and do them, right? Therefore keep these laws so that you can live. Keep these laws so that you can have life. Keep these laws so you don't have to spend 30 years in a Canadian penitentiary. You understand? There was a story of this one brother. He's been in jail. What's it called? They call it an intermittent sentence, meaning you're in jail until the judge decides how long your sentence is. And so he's been serving an intermittent sentence for over 30 years. Understand? For over 30 years over in Kingston, Ontario. Understand? He is going to spend his entire life in jail because of doing a petty crime. He's going to spend a lifetime in jail, you understand, of over making an emotional decision, doing something that he shouldn't have done while he was a youth, while he was a teenager. You understand? That's not life. That's not living. Waking up in a jail cell every day is not life. It's not living. This is why you got to keep these laws. Sit up here. Right? Keep therefore and do them. For this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations. Right? Look at the Jewish community over in Israel. Right? Look at the Jewish community here in Toronto. They have the Jewish communities in Toronto. They have some of the largest, most modern community centers. They have some of the most beautiful schools, high schools, elementary schools. They own tons of real estate. They have a massive inheritance for their people, right? They were able to take over the state of Israel in the 1940s, build up a nation, build up a government, a military, right? They were able to do these things using our laws, statutes, and commandments. Imagine if Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans did that. We're the greatest people on earth. Imagine what we could achieve being a righteous people. You understand? Not only could we achieve great things as a people, but the entire earth already wants to be like us. Right? It's crazy when I walk out my door in this area that I live. You have Slovakia. You have Edomites all over. It's funny to watch. They're all walking around with lip injections. It's like all these Edomite women walking around with these balloon-looking like lips, just trying to look like our people. You understand? Because they're jealous. They're jealous of who we are. They're trying to be like us. Imagine if we were a people of integrity. Imagine if we were a righteous people. The scriptures say, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. Imagine if we were, as a righteous people, ruling this earth. Imagine what it would look like today. All right? That's why it says this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations. All right? You look at how the Chinese people are living. Those Chinese people are the reason COVID-19's here. You understand? They're over in Lord knows what, Chinatown, eating every God-forbidden thing on earth. You understand? And because they're going around frying up that bat, having barbecue bat, you got COVID-19 that comes here on the earth. Right? Why? Because China is not a wise nation. The laws that they have over in China, it's not a wise nation. It's not a smart way of governing a race of people. It's no different than America. It's no different than Canada, right? Shoot, so Slovakia, you got this gay pride movement, this LGBTQ community going wild over here in Canada, right? That gay pride month, Slovakia, YouTube, don't shut me down if I'm saying it wrong. That LGBTQ elemental P month, whatever you want to call it, right? That just finished. They're actually allowed, Slovakia, they said, if you are a grown man or a woman participating in any of these pride parades, you're allowed to walk on the streets naked. The things they're doing are disgusting. They're promoting a man laying down with a man like it's some beautiful thing, right? Meanwhile, he's at home taking every painkiller known to man because the sexual deviancy and the sexual lifestyle that he's committed himself to is destroying his body. Got grown men walking around in diapers because they can't control their bowel movements because they believe a man laying down with a man is a good thing. Understand? They are not a wise nation of people. Promoting same-sex marriage while you got AIDS and HIV probably coming up next month. It's going to be AIDS Awareness Month in about 2 weeks because of all the STDs running rampant in that LGBTQ community. You understand? These laws, statutes, and commandments were given to us because it's just a smart way to live. It's a smart way to live your life, to treat people to a certain standard. You understand? We don't do these things in Canada, and that's why this place is hell for us to live in, right? It says, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. And that's how the nations used to look at us. Hello. That's how these nations used to look at us. That's how these nations look at the Jewish man today. Like they're wise and understanding people. And they're not even keeping all the law, statutes, and commandments. All right. Let's drop that. Let's go to Psalms chapter 19 and verse 7. Okay, Psalms chapter 19. Psalm 19 and verse 7. Salakia. Okay, Psalms chapter 19 and verse 7 says, the law of the Lord is perfect. You understand? These law, statutes, and commandments, they are perfect. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. Okay? And you got to understand, if you're Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indian, don't look at these laws like there's some kind of fault with them. Right? You're sitting there struggling. Giving up pork because you think there's something good about pork. When really the only reason you eat pork is because you watched a commercial from the age of 5 saying those BBQ back ribs are a beautiful thing. That's the only reason you believe it's a good thing. Because you as a child growing up, you would never think that bleach is good for you. You would never think that drinking bleach is a good thing. But because society told you it's a good thing, and society told you there's nothing wrong with it, you believe as an adult that maybe this thing isn't so harmful for me. Okay? When the Bible says the law of the Lord is perfect. Right? I know I've gotten to a certain place where I stopped questioning the laws. Understand? I stopped questioning, well, why should I do this? Why should I do that? You should do it because the Most High commanded you to. You understand? The Most High said not to follow these other nations. The Most High said not to follow these different Pisces signs and Cancer signs and Leo signs. The Most High said not to do those things. Right? The Most High said he doesn't suffer as a witch to live. You shouldn't be out here trying to justify why smoking weed is a good thing. You understand? You shouldn't be a drug addict because God said not to be a drug addict. Period. You shouldn't eat pork because God said don't eat pork. Period. You shouldn't eat shrimp because God said it's an abomination. It's a disgusting thing. The law of the Lord is perfect. You have to hold it. Okay, it says the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. Right? And that's something that you should understand, is that without these laws, statutes, and commandments, you are not smart. You are not wise. Salaki, bear with me. All right, it says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. You understand? Without these laws, statutes, and commandments, you are not a wise individual. Right? The best way I would say to think about it is The Most High created everything. The Most High created this earth. The Most High created people and everything in it. Who else knows best how this world should be run? Who knows what's best, how this world should operate? Understand? Who knows better than the Most High what is good to put in your body and what is not? You understand? The scriptures say the wisdom of this world is foolishness to God. Understand? The Most High is damn near laughing at people trying to figure out a better way to live. I think it was just last year that doctors finally realized that eating pork is a bad thing. The Most High told you 7,000 years ago, don't eat pork. You understand? Because the wisdom of this world is foolishness to God. You understand? Without these laws, statutes, and commandments, you're going to make poor decisions. You're going to make a decision that is going to destroy your life. All right. Let's drop that. Let's go to Salakia. Let's keep reading on down. Okay. Psalms 19:7 says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. Verse 8, the statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. You understand? It's like you can't, when you go through these laws, statutes, and commandments, you are not going to find a hole in some way that's going to affect your life, or some way that's going to destroy your life. All of these laws, statutes, and commandments were given to you so that you could live, so that you could have a good life, right? And he said, I want you to live and live abundantly. I want you to have a good life. You understand? I don't want you to scrape by working 9 to 5, stressed out every week how you're going to pay your bills. I want you to live and live abundantly. I want you to have a good life. Right? Verse 9 says, the fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. Right? Christians would have you believe that, 2,000 years ago, Christ said you don't have to obey God anymore. Christians would have you believe that all those things that were told to us in the Old Testament, we no longer have to keep. When the Bible says these laws, statutes, and commandments, they endure forever. Right? Let's go to Psalms chapter 149, verse 19. Right? And just for time's sake, let's go through a couple scriptures, take any last questions if anybody has questions, and then we'll end the class, okay? So we'll go Psalms 147 and 19. It says, he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments and unto Israel. Right? And that's what I was saying before. This is why our people this is why we're always number one inside the prison systems. This is why we're always number one dying of AIDS, right? Dying of HIV, dying of gout, high blood pressure, heart attacks, right? Number one race of people, the top of the list on everything, right? Of all the destructive things going on with our people, right? I remember Salak, shout out to Capizania. Capizania told me that one time, and I haven't found a hole in that since. It's always Black, Hispanic, Native Indian, Black, Hispanic, Native Indian, Black, Hispanic, Native Indian. It is always us being destroyed as a people. Why? Because it says, Most High said he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and commandments unto Israel. These laws, statutes, and commandments were given to us. And just like a good father, when you tell your child to come in at a certain time at night, when you open that door, you're looking for your child. You're not looking for your neighbor's child. When you tell your child to do their homework, you're not looking at your neighbor's child to see if they did their homework. Most High is a father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Most High is a father of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. That's who he cares about. That's who he punishes. You understand? Because correction is love. He doesn't want us to keep destroying ourselves. Verse 20 says, he hath not dealt so with any nation. Most High isn't dealing with any other nation. The Most High isn't dealing with the Arabs, the East Indians, right? You Muslims out there going wild, saying every time that I say there is no prophet outside the nation of Israel. Right? All you people in Islam always want to say, yeah, there's Gentile prophets. There's Gentile prophets all over the Bible. Because these other nations are always trying to fit themselves in to the greatest book ever written. They're always trying to fit themselves in with some type of relationship with the Most High, when it's just not the case. Understand? The Most High is not dealing with any other nation. He's only dealing with the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. He's only dealing with Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. And that's why if you're not Black, Hispanic, or Native American, you can't come into this class. You understand? You can't come to our feast days, our high holy days. You understand? It is exclusive. You understand? Most High has not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. All right. Let's drop that. Let's go to Romans. Let's go to Romans chapter 7 and verse 1. Okay. A lot of you Christians out here saying, oh, that's the Old Testament. That's the Old Testament. What does the New Testament say? This is Romans chapter 7 and verse 1. Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law. For I speak to them that know the law. Christians would have you believe that you don't need to know the law, statutes, and commandments. Shoot, they got those, they made those little pocket books, those pocket Bibles that only contains the New Testament. Why? Because you can be a good Christian without the Old Testament. You don't need to know the law, statutes, and commandments. When Romans 7 and 1 says, know ye not, brethren, this is Paul speaking, for I speak to them that know the law. Right? That's strike one, Christians. He says, how that the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. Right? What is Paul saying? So long as you are alive, these laws, statutes, and commandments, they have dominion over you. What is dominion? Dominion is authority, rulership. These laws reign over you. They rule over you. They govern you. So long as you are alive, Black man, Hispanic man, Native American man, these laws have dominion over you, right? This is Paul, your beloved apostle Paul, Christians, saying these laws have dominion over you forever. Right? Slack. Right? It says, know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. All right. Let's go to Romans 6 and 15. right? Romans 16, Paul asks, what then? Shall we sin? Because we are not under the law, but under grace, right? That's a question that Paul asked, right? Meaning, because we have this grace period, does that mean that we can just do whatever we want? That we don't have to keep the law, statutes, and commandments? Paul says, God forbid, right? Hell no. Understand? You have a grace period where you come into this truth, and you learn to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, and you change your life, right? Christ said, how can a man enter into the kingdom of heaven unless he be born again, right? And so you want to think, as you learn that you have to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, when you first come into the truth, you're just a baby, right? You're just a baby, you're just a little child. And you got to learn how to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, right? You need somebody to correct you, to check you when you're out of order, right? Just like a father does, right? You tell your 3-year-old child, it's not okay to lie. And you're going to tell your 3-year-old child a couple more times, it is not okay to lie. You can't do this. And once you see that they understand what you're saying, they do it again, that's when the punishments start happening, right? The Most High is merciful. He's giving you grace, right? Don't abuse that grace like the Christian church, right? That Christian church is the house of Satan, right? You'll be in church Thursday. What do they call those? Prayer meetings. They'll be in that prayer meeting on Thursday, and then Friday night they're getting pissed drunk at a club, sleeping with every man, woman, and Lord knows what in that club, right? And they're gonna go back to that prayer meeting on Thursday, ask for forgiveness, and do the same thing again on Friday. All right, that's the Christian church. And the Most High says, or when Paul said, God forbid, right? This grace isn't an excuse for you to do whatever it is you want. Hold it. All right? It's not an excuse to do whatever it is you want. Right? This is a chance for you to change. Matter of fact, let's go to Hebrews, Hebrews chapter 10. All right, we'll go to Hebrews 10 and verse 26, and we'll end there. Hebrews 10, verse 26 says, for if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth. This is a perfect verse, right? Right on to what Paul was saying. Paul said, shall we continue in sin, right, that grace may abound? He said, hell no, right? You can't keep living that lifestyle that you were once living, right? Just because the Most High is showing mercy on you, right? Hebrews 10, verse 26 says, for if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth. Meaning, once you have the knowledge of the truth, you understand? You have a certain period of time, you understand, before the Most High destroys you for your wickedness. You understand? That's not something that you want to sit and play with. The Most High will destroy you. The Most High will punish you for your decisions that you choose to make. You understand? It says, for if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins. You understand? If you continue to sin willfully, once you understand what you're supposed to be doing, Lord be with you. Hold on. Take seat. You understand? Lord be with you. Verse 20, let's read one more verse. Verse 27 says, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries. You understand? The Christian church is not going to teach you to fear the Most High. Paul was teaching you to have a fear of the Most High. He was telling you, don't continue in your sin. Change your life. Learn these laws, statutes, and commandments. Learn what's good for you. You understand? Learn what's good for you and change your life. All right. And so with that, we're running out of time. Okay. Every Wednesday, all right, Toronto is going to be gathering, right, once again at the North York Central Library. All right, you don't want to miss it. The scriptures say, gather yourselves together, O nation not desire. Gather together, all right. You want to come to class, you want to ask questions, right? Bring a pen and paper, bring a notepad, all right. Ask your questions, bring your questions. Every Wednesday night, we're teaching law, all right. I'm going to put the side out links in the chat. I'll get that up right now. Anything else? And with that, I'm going to say Shalom Israel, Shalom Toronto. Yahbashim Shabbat Thumb. Yah Shema Thumb Bashim Shai. The water for tuning in. All right, let's clap it up.